Yeah, I'm up. Definitely early, but I'd rather be early than late. At least a few people are responding to the tweet about the official Zoom meeting. I honestly prefer if people use that instead, because that way they can actually contribute. Ooh, a person has joined the chat. Huzzah! The tweet just went live. That actually took a while. I was up for almost 5 minutes. I know there's not a whole lot going on right now. Um, this is one of those situations that I wanted to make sure everything was up and running because I've been having a lot of computer problems as of late. And I figured it was better to get things, tested and make sure it's all working early instead of late. Oh, Washington State is apparently looking to provide free KN95 masks. Not as good as N95, but damn close. No, well, we're stuck waiting. Haven't got any questions or anything for me? Be nice if they let us in the room even if we couldn't actually interact with anything, but I promise I did not expect it was going to be this boring. I'm so sorry in advance. Definitely say if people need to get a drink or go to the bathroom. We've still got a few minutes, unfortunately. go. That's what I'm looking for. Hi, Holo. One of the cats just woke up and she wants attention. Hi. Look at my watch. There. There. See? Hi. Hi, everyone. You don't want to let go of me. Lick, lick, lick. Hey there, Holo. Any minute now. Okay, I need to go to work. I do. We are supposed to be just a couple minutes from showtime. Oh, hey Rev. Yeah, I know this video is probably not going to be too much interest to you, but or at least directly. That said, I hope you're doing okay. Ooh. Um, says connecting. I need to edit because of course this went wonky. Why do I not? What the? Uh, there we go. Still alive is I'll take it.
For all of you that have just joined, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. You don't need to use your mic. Great. Just so you know, we're just going to give it a minute or so for anyone else to join. And you're welcome to leave your camera on or take it off. That's up to you. We would ask that you stay muted unless or until you're going to speak. That will make sure we minimize the extraneous noise. So appreciate that. Like I said, we'll just give it a minute or two before we get formally started.
For those who had seen my previous video, Michelle Wenzel is the she's the person that's bouncing in the top right corner there. She is the one who moderated the last session that we had. Travis Goldberg there in that fourth spot looks to me like he might be the police chief in Gresham. And so he's probably going to drop off later. Pages and pages of people joining. At 55 listed.
Well, hello again, everyone. By my watch, I've got about 3 minutes after the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to ask Police Chief Goldberg if he wouldn't mind just kind of starting
More on that later.
And kicking us off. So, Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And again, thank you to everyone joining us tonight. I'm Travis Goldberg, your Chief of Police for the City of Gresham. It's an honor to be with you here tonight, and an honor, while I won't stay for this process, because it's important to get your constructive feedback in an arena where you feel safe and secure in sharing. So the police department is not a part of this process, but please know it's a very important part of the entire process we're going through as we work with our associates at Barry Dunn for a comprehensive assessment of everything that we do in terms of policing for our community. And so thank you very much. I know last time I talked too much, Michelle, so I want to turn it over to the people that have more time than that. So I would like to introduce Dr. Michelle Wenzel and former chief or unless he's current chief, I know he's in Colorado, Fred Fletcher. Yeah, thanks, Fred. So I will turn it over to you. Please, everyone, we look forward to receiving your feedback and know that our pledge is to use this information to be better servants and ensure that we meet your expectations around our policing services. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Fred.
Appreciate it, Chief. Thanks for the intro. And he's going to leave the meeting. And just in case you missed it, one of the things that we do with these meetings is we really ask that the police department not participate, just so folks, if there are any apprehensions, can feel comfortable about sharing their thoughts without concern about anything that might be said. I do want to just go over a few pieces at the beginning here. First of all, I want to echo the police chief's comments and say thank you for joining us. This is obviously a very important part of this process. Again, my name is Michelle Wenzel. I am a manager with Barry Dunn. We are a national consulting firm, and we've been hired by the city of Gresham to conduct full-scale operations and management assessment of the police department and to provide feedback to the police department and recommendations concerning best practices in the industry and how they can improve and continue to serve the community of Gresham in the best way possible. And we have a very kind of extensive process that we go through in these studies, as you might imagine. And but one of them, and one of the more important ones, is collecting feedback directly from the community. And so again, I want to reiterate the value and importance of you being here and just say that we very much appreciate it and look forward to your feedback. As we go through the evening here, I do want to just kind of give a few, we all live by rules, right? So I'm going to give you a few kind of rules for the meeting tonight. First of all, we welcome all comments, positive comments, constructive feedback, but we do ask that people be cordial in their remarks and do your best to be fairly succinct in your comments if you can, as we do want everyone to have an opportunity to share their perspectives if they wish to do so. A couple of things I want to point out. Number one, this meeting is not a debate. So while we welcome all viewpoints and perspectives, we're really interested in yours, not your comments about someone else's. So please feel free to share your thoughts about the police department. And I guess I probably should have added, the objective here is really just to solicit input from you in terms of what you think about the police department, how they're serving public safety needs, and any constructive comments you might have about the police department in general. There's no specific set of questions or agenda. That's it. So in a little bit, I'm going to open this up for comment, and we will take comments from any and all that are willing and interested, and we'll go through that process. We are asking that folks speak open and honestly in their comments. Just know that we are not recording this session and we're not tracking any names. I can't speak for others who might be on the call, but from our perspective, from the city's perspective, we're not recording it and we're not collecting information on who's here, and that's by design. If you wish to speak, what we're going to ask you to do is to put your first name and last initial in the chat, and we will take those in order as we go through. So feel free to go ahead and add that information in the chat, and then we will again we will collect that and call on people as your time comes up. We are going to say that everybody should be already muted, and if you're not, we may mute you, but when it gets to be the point for you to speak, please feel free to unmute yourself. And of course, when you're done, please mute yourself again. Again, I do want to say that this is a public forum and we are interested in hearing everyone's viewpoints. It's an important part of the process. But again, please keep in mind that we want you to exercise some discretion and decorum in the comments that you provide. And I do want to just say, as much as I hate to, we do reserve the right to remove disruptive people from the chat if people are acting in a way that suggests we need to do that. Again, we have slotted a couple of hours for this meeting. Our experience is we usually get through all the content. However, if we don't, just know there is an opportunity for you to provide input online through the social pinpoint site that's been set up. You can find that site by going to the city's website and looking for the social pinpoint site, and then you can make written comments there. You're welcome to make written comments there in addition to anything that you say here as well. So again, appreciate that. Appreciate everyone who's here. And I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to open it up and just ask if there's anyone who wants to provide feedback. You can enter your name in the chat. And again, as I said before, you are welcome to leave your cameras on if you wish. You can also turn them off, up to you, and whatever you feel most comfortable with. So with that, if you want to have a comment or provide a comment, put your name, first name and last initial in the chat. And it looks like we have our first victim. Oh, by the way, I want to say this. I noticed somebody just put a comment in the chat. This is one of the things we are, just so everyone's clear, we're not going to read the chat comments. You're welcome to read them along as we go. Otherwise, just please understand, there's going to be a lot going on with this meeting as we go forward. So again, feel free to use the chat, but understand we're not going to read the comments from the chat other than to call out the names of the folks that want to speak. So with that, I think the first name that I see here is Anna. So Anna, feel free to unmute
When you have
yourself.
finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Oops, somebody's recording. I think actually the first name is Andrea, and then TK, and then only me. I'm third. Just
Okay.
the Dre Miller is the first.
Let's see.
I can start, but yeah.
Oh, okay, yep, you're right. Okay, I didn't see that. Dre?
I appreciate that. I appreciate y'all holding these meetings too. I was participating in the first meeting that was held in person, and I was kind of shocked to see that there wasn't but 5 people of color that was actually participated in this meeting from marginalized communities. So I appreciate looking on the participants list and seeing a little bit more people volunteering to be at this meeting today. I did have something written that I wanted to read. I was 8 years old when I watched Rodney King get brutally beaten. I was 8 years old when I seen protests in LA turn into riots. My father was 20 years old when Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is that? Is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And so in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these reoccurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention. It has been 55 years since Dr. King said this. and it has been 30 years since I witnessed police brutality for the first time with my own eyes. America has failed to hear that the promises of freedom, liberty, and justice has not been met. These conditions in our society around policing must be condemned during life and not after death. Justice is not served by throwing Chauvin or Kim Potter in jail. That is accountability. Justice is served when we as people of color can walk or drive down the street with the same privilege or without fearing of being murdered by police. I hear a lot of forced relationship building, that this same minded people do not go around telling victims of or survivors of sexual abuse, elder abuse, child abuse, sex trafficking, domestic violence, kidnapping, or assault and battery, that they must go and build relationships with their abusers. So I find it inhumane that you tell people of color that we must build relationships with officers that we have witnessed as a system brutalize our communities since the days of inception. It is not on us to be the ones to change by being forced to build relationships. The change needs to come from within these police bureaus that over police our communities, that profile our young boys and girls of color, that can continue to brutalize and murder us unarmed while mass shooters are taken into custody. And like Dr. King said 55 years ago, as long as America postpones that justice, we stand in the position of having these reoccurrences of violence and riots again and again. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak. And I also just want to state, just as and somebody said it in the chat, we're seeing gun violence occurring all over our country right now. And what that is being exacerbated by COVID-19. And what it is also is it's a disinvestment from Black and brown communities that we're seeing. And what we need to do is look at the root causes and upstream solutions. Because what we do know is that violence, when you actually are more punitive, that you create a more violent society. That's all that I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dre. Appreciate that. A couple of things I wanted to just mention. I'm hoping this works. I just put a link in the chat. Maybe somebody can try following that, make sure that works. This is to the social pinpoint site that I mentioned before. By the way, there will be additional meetings coming up. There is a planned meeting on January 20th. Still working on the venue for that, but that one will be, and that information will be posted on the social pinpoint site. And again, any additional meetings will be posted, and folks are saying the link works. So if you want to copy that link, if you haven't visited the social pinpoint site, that's a great place to go and find out additional information about the project. And so thanks again, Dre, for your comments. And so now that I don't get out of sequence again with who's next, I think TK was next.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. I didn't put my name on there. My name is Todd, and I just want to thank the police department for everything that they do for us 24/7. I've lived in the city for over 30 years, and this problem of financing has been going on for over 30 years, or probably even longer than that. And what I'd like to see us to be able to get they have to do the levy or something like that, where we could get more money for the officers. But also they need to be a little more creative in maybe looking into getting some grants for photo radar for speed, for the traffic intersections. And it's really sad to see that we're the fourth largest city in Oregon, and we have the smallest police department, and they work tirelessly for us 24/7. And I just want you to know, and everyone else to know, that we really appreciate everything that they do. And I hope they look for other ways of finding funding and this could be resolved before it gets too bad. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Okay, I think next was, I'm pretty sure, Anna, I think we made our way to you.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Anna, and I live in the United States about 10 years, and I see like very different America now from what I came to. And my comment is just, first of all, thank you very much for every single police officer, so for trying to keep us safe, and for everything, for dedication. And I actually really emphasize with the DRE, and yeah, I do see that a lot of historical issues are still here. But my point is that people, just regular citizens, live here and don't quite feel safe. And whatever's going on, and whatever how we're gonna fix it or not fix it, and whatever which way it will go, it will be really great if police departments and police officers will take a new task to educate regular citizens how to keep themselves safe. I already emailed police department with that question, and I understand that if they will come out saying like, hey, you're on your own, you need to watch your safety by yourself, that might like provoke some panic. But actually they will introduce some kind of new techniques. For example, I've never heard before about 9 p.m. routine, and I'm a single mom of 2 kids, and it would be great to have some tips about how to live in modern, not quite safe reality, and what things to consider, just little things, somehow educational approach to regular citizens. Will be just great to have any kind of support, so we will not feel like we are we're just on our own by ourselves without any additional support. Yes, and thank you very much again. Thanks for holding it, and thank you for holding it virtually, because if that will be in person, I will not be able to come. Thanks.
You're welcome. And I do want to just mention, been a couple of comments in the chat. I told you we're not going to read them all, but trying to just keep up with that. There was a comment about social distancing for the 20th meeting. Again, we're going to try to make sure that we have the right venue for that, and hopefully we'll be able to ensure that social distancing and wearing masks and that kind of thing is can be done by folks that are in attendance. Seeing some different comments here, and I just want to pull out one comment. Someone said, we're being kind of general. Let's talk about Gresham PD. I think the larger narrative is important, and I appreciate folks like Dre and others kind of adding perspective to that on a larger scale. But also agree, we do want to definitely think about specific comments you might have about Gresham PD in particular, because obviously that's the focus of the study, and frankly, that's where we are and what we can affect at this point. So again, appreciate all comments, but certainly those that that can or have more direct comments about the police department, specifically Gresham, we'd love to hear those. Anyone else? I don't think we've missed anyone who said they wanted to talk. This will be a really short meeting. I see that there's a note by talking about city councilors commenting. I just want to be clear that this is a feedback session, and we certainly welcome any and all feedback. At the same time, we want to make sure that feedback is constructive and part of the feedback process, as opposed to, for example, talking about what the council has done or hasn't done. That's a different forum. Carol R., I think you're next.
Thank you. I hope I'm unmuted.
You are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on the fact that the city, soon after the pandemic started, right after our former mayor had signed the pledge, the mayor's pledge, the Obama mayor's pledge, held a forum, and it was the promise to be the first of many. We had some city leadership changes, and so that didn't happen. But that first forum on policing in communities of color, and brought in many of our community leaders of color to talk about it, was very informative. And but there was a real request from the panelists and from audience members when they were asking questions for continuing and doing more than just talking. So are there plans to do more? I know this analysis certainly is another step in that, but I would say having those conversations where we really hear about the challenges, and just as Dre was saying, driving while Black. So I would just comment that was for a white community member, very helpful. I've been reading a lot, and I don't want it to feel like the communities of color have to have the responsibility to educate, but I think it needs to be a conversation, and I would like to see that continue. Thank you.
So thanks for those comments. And just so you know, really, this is the start of what we would expect to be an ongoing process by the police department. These forums are really going to set some foundation for us, help us collect the right information to make recommendations to the police department on how to advance a number of different things. One of those certainly has to do with community interaction and community policing and so forth. And for those that have your hands up, please just put your first name and last initial in the chat, and then we will call on you in sequence. We're not going to respond to hands raised. It's just too hard to keep track of those as they come up. So at any rate, thanks, Carol. Again, to your point, yes, there will be additional meetings. I will say that certainly COVID has been problematic in terms of maintaining the cadence for some of those things. And of course, now with the latest developments, it has another layer of complexity, but we're fortunate we have opportunities like this to forward the conversations as well. So thanks for those comments. Quinn, you're next.
Sue are next, Michelle.
Oh, okay, Sue.
I think there's Sue.
Oh, I see that. Sorry about that.
I think we bounced over Sue.
We did. Sue,
Okay.
are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've heard so frequently from my area is they're just really concerned about their safety. We've had a lot of property crimes in our area. Almost every day on Nextdoor, someone has had a car stolen, sometimes a couple cars stolen overnight. We've had catalytic converters cut off, and this is not a high income area, so these property crimes really hurt people financially. All that turns out to be really expensive, as we know. So that's really a concern, and I, as well as my neighbors, really understand that we're in a bind with the number of police officers, and we have found that when we have been able to get some response, that they're doing their best, and we appreciate that, and know it's just a real tough time. There's been neighbors that have tried to call into 911 and can't get through, or on hold forever, or get hung up on, or get busy signals. And we've all noticed that Gresham has had a lot of violent crime, including just one last night with the bank robbery, and Multnomah County and Gresham were all tied up with that. And the neighbors have commented, and I feel the same way too, that we might end up in a real life-threatening situation and try to get through to 911. And even if we could, we may not be able to get a police response. So that's really concerning, to the citizens. Another thing that we were very sad to see the NET team be disbanded for financial reasons, at least for now. And I just know that they have tried really hard to work with some of the issues that different people have had, both the neighbors as well as people living in houses or apartments or that possibly are houseless. So I really feel like they have done a really great job and made a huge difference for the city. So that's really a big loss.
So can I just jump in for 1 second? I'll let you continue, but I just want to clarify the net team was not disbanded due to financial reasons. The issue that is happening right now is that several of the specialty units within the police department have been reduced in size or at least temporarily reassigned those personnel back to patrol because of staffing shortages. So it's not a financial constraint in terms of the net team or the other specialty teams that do really great work. So those are all pieces of the puzzle, but we've certainly seen and heard a lot of feedback about the net team and agree with you. It's a very, very positive part of the organization. I'll let you continue. Go ahead.
Right, and actually, I appreciate you saying that. I did misspeak. I am aware of that. I understand it's a staffing situation. So yes, so that's something that we would certainly like to see be brought back into action. And like I said, I understand we have a problem and can't do that right now. Another thing that I'm seeing go on a lot, I think a lot of other people have, is we just have this sense of lawlessness about anything traffic. I know we're having some of these, I don't know what they're called, rallies where I don't know what they call slide and all that stuff, but they're racing around different areas and have these meets and they go around areas and, some have ended up running into people's fences and that sort of thing. I've seen people just go through the 20-mile-per-hour school zones at like 50 miles per hour. We don't have any traffic enforcement. So it's really a huge problem for neighborhoods, schools, anybody that's out and about, whether you're on foot or in a car. It feels like it's really dangerous. I guess my comments are that Gresham is starting to feel real dangerous to a lot of people as far as like going around in your daily activities, and it's really a concern. But I feel like the police department, it's a really tough job. It's a real tough time in society on many levels. And so I really appreciate the work they do. I know a lot of people in our neighborhood do, and we hope that things can get better as time goes on. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. So now we're going to go to Quinn.
All right, good evening, everyone. I don't have much to say right now. I think I will probably speak up later, but I just wanted to, I guess, broach the idea of safety being about more than just police. This meeting is about public safety. This process is about public safety, but we're just talking about police. And as Dre correctly pointed out earlier in the chat, police can't stop crime and they can't prevent crime. They can only respond to it. If we want to have a safe community, if we want to have a safe society, we have to take care of each other and we have to help each other get by and live well and strive. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. I really believe in love. I believe in compassion. I believe in taking care of each other. I believe people are good. But we're not living up to that ideal. We're not living up to it, like our loving potential as humans and as a community. Oof, I'm getting heated here. I want to live in a compassionate society where everyone's safe, and I think we all want that. But our imagination for so long has been stuck in this concept of policing as being the path to safety, when that is just so backwards. It's a falsehood. It's not accurate. And if you look back at the history of policing, police were invented as slave patrols to protect white property, aka Black slaves. That's the history of police. And we see that ripple and echo today in the way that police locally, nationally, treats people of color. I don't want to live in that society. I refuse to live in that society. We can do better. We must do better. And so when we're talking about safety, I want to talk about housing. I want to talk about childcare. I want to talk about medical care. Police are not the answer. Like, yes, I do believe we need to have emergency services. Yes, I do believe we have to have first responders. But police as an institution doesn't need to be what we rely on. There's so many other options. Let's spread our imagination and think bigger and think more compassionately. Okay, I said more than I expected to. Thank you so much.
All right, next is Eric.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay, Michelle?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'm kind of an old guy trying to learn some new tricks with my AirPods here, so I appreciate it. I also wanted to say that I was able to successfully add a comment on to the link you shared, so thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to actually, it's kind of connected, I guess, in some way to the topic Queen had just mentioned. Looking for other ways to connect in the community without without escalating situations, and then bringing those to light to our community. So, like, for example, I think the creative partnership that police department has with the code enforcement team for the city of Gresham, and really coming along with a civil organization together in partnership to naturally keep situations from escalating, I think is productive for our community. And so even as a citizen, if I can hear about the ways that our police are connecting with our nonprofits that are working in our community and working in partnership, and the more that we can brand that in a positive way for our community, I think that's going to help show that we want to work together. And at the same time, we do want to keep order, maintain order, and want to be a place where we can live civilly with each other. And so I just wanted to say that I appreciate the people who are thinking about the creative ways to partner together to keep situations from escalating. And so I think any funding that can be steered that direction to create those partnerships is money well spent. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. And I know this is kind of, I think M. Lindsay wants to speak. So I'll give you a chance if you're here.
Yes, thank you. I've lived in Gresham since 1982. I retired from the city of Portland, but I've owned 2 businesses here. I brought my kids up, my grandkids here, and we do have a problem with policing, but I don't know if has it ever been discussed our funding for emergency services, and that's police, fire, whatever you want to put in there. Talked about the bond issue that we created from Measure 5. Measure 5, our city does not get the funds for emergency services that other cities do because of that. And I'll leave my comment at that.
Yeah, so.
And thank you to the Gresham Police Department. I think they're an excellent organization. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't pretend to know all the details about this, but I do know that there are funding restrictions for the city that have really been a challenge for overall, and so that is an issue that the city is well aware of and is continuing to have conversations about in terms of overall funding for city services and particularly public safety. So that's a good point, and I do know there are some restrictions on that that are legal restrictions that requires some different effort to get around. So looking for anybody else that I haven't seen yet. I'm kind of scrolling through the chat here. Rosa?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to bring up a few issues when it comes to policing in Gresham. First off, I have been a community liaison, and I have lived in Gresham for over 20 years. And I come from Portland, Northeast Portland. I was born and raised here in Oregon. This is my community, my home all my life. So when I came out to Gresham, I noticed immediately that there was a lot of issues inside the police department because my family is a BIPOC family. We are a complete family of color. Native American, Puerto Rican, Black, and Asian as a mixed family. And I noticed right away the difference that my children were treated, the different ways my children were treated within this city, in Centennial District, from the police, the Gresham police. I noticed as they grew up how they were being pulled over. I was getting calls about my children being pulled over for being Black, driving in Gresham. To as early as 2 months ago, my own Black son, who is 25, was pulled over for a light on his car being out, which he got away. But had he not been a Black man, would he have been pulled over in a time like this when we're watching so much crime happening in this community? I don't believe so. As I said, I have been a community ally. I have gone to schools to sit with families and individuals to be a community representative. So they have someone on their side who is willing to advocate for them and to listen and to be to make aware to the people that they're discussing the issues with that there are community members on their side. And I have witnessed everything from SROs being inappropriate and out of line to adults feeling unsafe when dealing with police at their own doorstep. Police are harassing family members and kids and their parents when their kids are having issues in school. Police are going to their homes and threatening the parents to have their children taken away for, not supporting the actions that were taken by their children. I mean, by the school systems. It's just unfortunate to me that these families of color are being harassed on a regular basis, that my own children can't even live free in their own community that they were raised in, and that the police are taking a back seat when it comes to handling crime. And what Quinn had said is definitely true. The police do not stop crime. They do not resolve crime. There recently was an article about the Portland police and how in the last several years, out of 100 murders, only 10 of those go solved, around 10 of them. And most often in those times that they are arresting people, that they have the wrong people. So when we're talking about policing in Gresham and all the new shootings and everything else that's going on, we have to take into account those are the same types of numbers we're getting out here. They're not preventing crime. They're not solving the crime. Very little crimes actually get solved around this entire country, and we do know that. Those are records. Those are documented. You can look it up, Google it. It's not my job to do that for you. But what I'm saying, what we need to focus on is how we can prevent crime, how we can actually heal the relationships within the community, because it really is up to the community to take care of each other. My husband was a victim of a bias hate crime in Gresham, where he literally almost lost his life from a racist, homeless, drugged out white man. And the first officer that came to us, because my husband is Black, the first officer that came to us, he's very abrupt, very rude. He didn't seem as if he was truly concerned for my husband's well-being. And he questioned more so what my husband did versus what happened. The officer that actually took me to identify the man who attacked my husband was more concerned. He actually cared about my husband. He asked questions about whether or not I noticed anything in the man's hands, or he truly asked questions about the crime. And these are two officers in the same department. One treating my Black husband as the criminal, and one treating my husband as the victim, which he was. He was a Black man walking into a store. Who almost lost his life. So when we talk about police, that is not me. So when we talk about policing in Gresham, and we talk about things when we talk about the safety of people in Gresham, we truly have to look beyond ourselves, beyond the color of our own skins, beyond, whether or not we support the police. I've had amazing police officers who have responded to calls for homeless people, who have gone in and done the job and given them resources and taken them to shelters. But then I've had officers who literally have kicked people while they're down. And this is all inside of Gresham Police Department. I am with GSU for All. I am the founder and I am the leader of GSU for All. And I will tell you this, during those protests, we have seen some of the ugliest of our police department standing face to face with them on that line. And then in other circumstances, we have seen some of the best of our department who have truly come out and helped our community. We need to find a good balance. We need to hold those cops who are out here causing discontent within the community because of someone's color, because of somebody's sexism, because of somebody's race, sexuality, or race. We truly need to hold them accountable. There has to be accountability within this police department. We have to have more than just a slap on the hand for them. And as for the funding, there are so many ways we could be policing our communities. So many other ways. Misdemeanors are not the number one priority. Misdemeanor crimes are things that can be handled through community programs. Social services can handle the calls for mental illness. But when we have officers coming, not even wanting to do their jobs, being angry, mishandling people, mishandling our homeless, mishandling victims, treating victims like they're criminals, and they were deserving of any pain or infliction of anything that happened to them, it is incredibly wrong. And it is a broken system. And until we can fix that system within our police department, you guys have nothing to offer your community. Nothing. Because when I'm sitting in a meeting with GSU and the police department, and they tell us the way that they build bonds with our children and our youth is to hand them a sticker, a badge sticker, and that's supposed to be enough to make our children want to love and respect our police department, you're missing the mark. My own children were raised terrified of police because of the way that they were treated differently than their white friends. My granddaughter is afraid of police because of the way she has witnessed her grandparents and her aunts and uncles and her parent being treated differently by police. This should not be a generational issue. Gresham we can be better than this. And it really is up to each one of us to make the decision that our community is worth more, that our neighbor is worth more, and that we really want to do something about this. And we can't put it all in the hands of the police. We have to be responsible ourselves. We have to take the responsibility of looking out for one another and just being better people in general. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Bob F.
You hear me?
Yep.
I had a lot to say, but I was pretty concerned about the last person who spoke. Trying to be kind, I heard a whole lot of assumptions because that there was mistreatment due to color, skin color, and I really, truly hope that's not true. I hope everybody is being treated fairly, and we know there's been injustices throughout history, and there are people that have been marginalized. But I hear a lot of generalities about this subject without specifics, and just assuming it's because of your color. And my concern is how we as people, as citizens, show our respect toward the police and not pass on that prejudgment about the police to our children and grandchildren. I've lived in Gresham for over 50 years, so I've seen what things are like. I have been pulled over in my car in my younger days because I had a light out, and I happen to be white. So I hope you didn't get pulled over, or your son didn't get pulled over for a light out because the color of his skin. And my concern is, what was the lesson learned? Did he come home and we're teaching him hey, yeah, they're picking on you because you're race, or did we teach them, hey, the light was out? You know, the cop did you a favor because you weren't visible. I can't tell you how many times within the last month I've gone to work early in the morning between 5 and 7 a.m. when it's dark out, and people don't have their headlights on. I almost got in a wreck 2 days ago. My son-in-law did get in a wreck about 2 weeks ago because of people not having their headlights on. So I'm sure that's people of all colors that don't use their headlights and have burnout lights. So I'll just say that about that. You know, again, I don't want to take light what people's feelings are as far as being marginalized and things, but I'm hearing a lot. There were a lot of generalities from people that are pretty darn new to our specific community, and I have not experienced things the way that they have. There are generalities that led to the personal attacks on the SRO at Gresham High School not long ago, which led to attacking his personal character and the removal of that officer from Gresham High School, which, in my opinion, makes it less safe being there. I'm sure other people feel differently, but in my opinion, the uptick in crime, it does not hurt to have an SRO handy, because if there's an emergency at the high school, heaven forbid you got to call 911 and hope someone can be right there, because as we have already mentioned, the staff is very short at Gresham Police Department, so it might take a while. So who knows how many kids are endangered in the meantime when there was an SRO right there on site that could at least start the process of being in communication with fellow partners in law enforcement. It's been brought up that staffing shortages have led to the cutting of certain programs, neighborhood programs and such. And I'm just wondering, you know, why would a cop want to?
Bob,
let me.
I just want to interrupt you for 1 second.
Yeah.
Folks, this is not a debate, and the chat is not a place to comment on other people's comments. So please don't do that. That's not the purpose of the meeting. You can continue, Bob.
Okay, so I was almost done here, but we've talked about staffing shortages leading to less of the programs where we want the police to be involved, and people talk about the interaction with police in certain programs, nonprofits and such. And we'd love to have that, but if I was a Gresham cop and hearing such disrespect and people teaching their children to disrespect police, what's your motivation to stay on? If you should, and shame on city council members or anybody else, city staff, that is not giving the police the full respect and support that they greatly deserve. And in my opinion, that is what I'm hearing is going on currently in the city of Gresham. These police, I cannot thank them enough for their service. Yes, they are not perfect. None of us are perfect. So we need to be careful when we're pointing fingers at imperfect human beings. They're out there being shot at and in all kinds of tough situations. And I think we need to show them a little more respect, give them the support they need, and continue to treat them in a respectful manner. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Bob. Karen?
Hi there. I'm just trying to unmute myself there. Sorry, I got in here a little bit late today, but I just want to say that I think that funding, you know, and I know this isn't all about funding, but for all emergency services, like was talked about by somebody else, we need firefighters, we need emergency services, we need police, we need services, and however those come about to help all people. It doesn't, to me, everyone, all ages, all people, our entire community. We own a business and we advertise for getting employees. People don't want to move to Gresham because of the reputation that it's gaining. And, every day, my daughter called me the other day from Montana yesterday and said, "Oh my gosh, Mom, what is going on at home? There was a bank robbery and a shooting and there was this and that." She was, "I'm so glad I don't live there anymore." That's horrible. And I agree, as a community, we all need to work together and not let color divide us. We also need to find a starting point and move forward. We can't fix what's happened in the past. I'm sorry for anybody that's treated bad. When I get pulled over by a police officer, I'm nervous because I know I probably did something wrong. And what did I do? Or I know I'm speeding or whatever. But we need to work together, and police officers are there to maintain, the definition of policing is maintenance of law and order. Law and order, that's it. It's not about arresting and hurting people and it being a bad thing. They should be our partners, and we should all work together. And so I'm just hoping through this process that it helps our police department to do better, and that it helps our community to come up with great plans for the community to work together and respect authority. So that's really all I have to say. We just all want to feel safe here, and we don't now. So, unfortunately.
Okay, Andy?
Hi, everyone. Andy Miller. I'm here tonight as the Executive Director of Human Solutions. We're a nonprofit organization that's been providing affordable housing and homeless and other community services within the city of Gresham for the last 30 plus years. I've been Executive Director for the last 6 years, and in those 6 years I've had several positive interactions with members of the Gresham Police Department, but also several negative interactions. And since people have been asking for specifics in the chat, I'll just share one. I met some officers outside one of our affordable housing communities. This was a couple years ago. And as I approached and identified myself as the executive director, the officers said, "Oh, you're the zookeeper here. We're here for the animals." So I share that anecdote only because people have said it's important to call out specifics, and that kind of negative language sends a pretty strong message about how at least those officers were acculturated to view people living in affordable housing. And that's just one example. I want to step back a minute, and since I know the mayor and members of city council are here, I really want to echo and strongly support the notion that Quinn referenced earlier, and that is to focus on a broader notion of safety beyond policing. The city council has been steadily investing in housing and community development. And I would just encourage the mayor and members of the council to step up and increase those investments in housing and community development at a neighborhood level as a way of helping everyone feel safer. People need to feel like they belong somewhere, that they have a place to live that they can afford, and a healthy neighborhood that they can live in. All the data and studies around the country of urban areas all suggest that those kinds of investments have a much more profound impact on public safety than do hiring more police officers. And I would ask the chief to acknowledge the troubling culture of policing in the past and to move forward. And I think some specific suggestions about how to move forward with the new era of policing. Making sure that officers are trained in a way that they see affordable housing and the people who live in affordable communities as community members, and that those housing communities are community assets and positive ones. And training on how homelessness is viewed. We've seen many examples where homelessness is viewed negatively, and that the people who experience homelessness are viewed as a problem to be quickly relocated and swept away. I would encourage the city to look at what's happening in the city of Portland, the city of Eugene, with the street response programs there and consider adopting similar programs that build on community assets around mental health um, and moving people into housing as ways that better respond and de-escalate challenges that the community may be experiencing on the streets as a result of street homelessness. And finally, lastly, but I think perhaps most importantly, to see racial equity not as something you simply train officers around, but that you insist on, and that you create a professional culture around racial equity. And it literally doesn't just speak to how officers engage in crisis moments, but how officers engage, speak to, and where they speak from when they're engaging with communities of color in the city of Gresham. So those would be starting points for suggestions, and we look forward as an organization to working with the new chief and city council on making sure that Gresham is a community in which everyone feels safe.
Thank you. Cody?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Wonderful, thanks. I was just hopping in. I have a daughter.
Sorry about that.
I have a daughter over at Gresham High School, and I have just watched the SRO conversation just really tear apart that school. It's been hard to see that happen. I did hear, I believe his name was Bob, speak a little bit about some of the personal attacks and such that maybe happened to that SRO, and which is, that's hard to hear. Just a few weeks before that SRO resigned, we had some pretty horrific social media things go out. We had all of our, a handful of our very beautiful brown boys in our neighborhood, in our community, targeted in social media, and just the idea that we have this BIPOC community who is being targeted, but at the same time feels safer. Not to have an SRO in a school. It's my hope that that gives some kind of just piece of understanding to those who maybe don't live in a brown body, to understand how much fear you could potentially have to be targeted and still not feel comfortable with a police officer in the school. I was just wondering if there was what the plan is, if there's a plan to reallocate those funds for the SRO, for other types of services in the school, if they were going to replace an SRO, if the program was just being revamped. Just some of the questions I had around that specific program. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thanks very much, Cody. Danielle.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for holding this forum. I know I posted in the chat before, and before I get started, I usually don't give my stance on certain things, but I'm just going to share this first off so the folks that may make assumptions will know kind of where I stand. I've got veterans, I've got police officers. My uncle was the first chief of police to start the police union. So I've got police in my family, I've got veterans, you name it. And this is, in particular, what I have to say is even when the stories have been shared with you all here from BIPOC themselves. Okay, can everybody hear me now?
Yep.
Even when the stories are being shared from lived experiences from BIPOC and or from the experiences of what a white person has been feeling based off of how their family have been treated and or experienced. For some reason, there's a disconnect because then people's responses are, I hope this isn't happening, where it's been time and time and time again, it's happening. So it's like I'm trying hard to once again always have an understanding, and especially for folks that don't look like me, I reach out, talk to them, but I'm having a tough time with why after it's being repeatedly said, these negative experiences are happening, we say, oh, I really hope this isn't happening. And then we say, well, I get pulled over by the police and I'm not scared. Once again, these are lived experiences. And if you don't know what it's like to live in a different body, whether that's a BIPOC, are privileged enough to not have to go through. But that doesn't mean that we turn a blind eye. That doesn't mean that we don't listen to it and back to business. All of it plays a part into us as a community and as a whole. And some of these comments are just very disturbing. It's kind of like it's geared to shutting people down. Don't share your story. It doesn't apply to us. Oh, we don't believe you. And once again, this is why sometimes people don't come here to share their stories, because if you look in the comments, it's just like, you can choose to not say something. If you disagree, that's fine. But to say something after someone has shared something, it took them so long, maybe, and contemplation to even say something, once again, just shows us where we're at as a community. And these same people in our community are these same police officers. We are no different than a police officer. We can apply to be a police officer. We can go to the school. But if we have the lack of empathy, if we have the automatic defensive, no, this isn't reality, this is reality, these are the same people that are doing harm to those marginalized people. You know, I've got children also that go to Gresham High School that have spoken up and spoken out about their own personal experiences with the SRO, and they got criticized and ridiculed, and there was parents saying some hurtful, hateful things to these beautiful babies. I don't care if you disagree with my child or not, you're an adult, remain respectful. Instead of it being like, hey, you know what, maybe there's a different solution. Why don't we all sit down and talk about it? It was politicized. It's a BLM thing. It's this, and it's their lived experiences. For an example, if my child, based off of, I think one of the comments from someone was either shame on you or, you know, I really hope people aren't teaching their children to hate the police. If that's all you took from her message, once again, you put that wall up. What she was saying is, they're not teaching, we and me especially, we're not teaching our children to hate. They're formulating their own opinions based off of the experiences that they went through. So a lot of the time, if you have marginalized group of people, BIPOC people that have been mistreated by police, not just one, the bad apple, it's several, it's multiple. How can you expect my child to walk into school after they've just been, you know, harassed by a police officer, and then expect them to sit down along with your child, to sit down and get a proper, good education and focus on the studies and retain stuff that's being taught to them? That is just, it's not feasible. And just because your child feels more safe with them there, that is their walk of life. But instead of sitting down and coming to the table to talk about, okay, are there different, better options? What can we do for both sides? It's just an attack, and it's finger pointing, and it's, this is political. This is, you know, your feelings don't matter. It's kind of like in a rape situation or something else. Why should that person continue to have to be around that person? Is that person's trauma not just as important as someone who has been harassed by police? That trauma is trauma regardless. And if you have a group of people saying that they are feeling a certain type of way, and if we're not listening to our children, then these same lived experiences or these same quote unquote, they will fear the police or hate the police, are going to continue to happen because no one's holding them accountable, because they don't want to take the time to hear somebody else out in their story and say, you know what, maybe we can't come up with a solution that can remove the situation, the stigma, whether we can put other people in place to keep the people feeling safe. It's just always the point, the blame game, and it's really just hurting. It's sad. It makes me sad. And like I said, some of the comments as well, it's hurtful. And this is part of the reason why our community falls apart. minutes versus anything. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. I want to just take a pause here for a moment and kind of just everybody take a deep breath. I appreciate all the comments that are occurring and the things that people are saying. It's important to have these conversations. And as we've seen from a lot of different folks in the comments that are made and in the chats that we're seeing, people have varied opinions on a lot of these issues. And quite frankly, it's one of the challenges that we have as a society is to have these conversations in a cordial way that fosters additional communication and understanding and really a path forward. I'm going to reiterate to everyone, the chat is not for you to comment on what you think about something that someone else said. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of this meeting from an open forum perspective and the purpose of the chat is to put your name in there to tell us if you want to speak. I realize that these issues are very emotional for a lot of folks. I get that. But again, our objective here today is to talk about ways that we can, is to receive feedback from you, particularly about the Gresham Police Department, and to try to focus that conversation into those comments would be helpful. For those that have spoke, if you want to speak again, please, you can do that. But again, please don't comment on what other people have said. I appreciate that. And the next person I had on my list was Rosa.
Thank you again. I know that we're not to comment, but I will state this very clearly. When we were out, in 2000, and we were protesting in the streets here in Gresham, one, we were a peace protest. We were demanding the rights of our brown community, and our BIPOC community, demanding that our lives mattered. Demanding that our children's lives mattered. And when we had to go against Proud Boys, and we were getting shot at with pellets, we were getting bear mace, we had knives and guns pulled on us. It wasn't all of us who were sitting there yelling in the cops' faces. We were not in the police faces yelling. I was not. I was a peacekeeper. My job was to protect the people who came to stand with us in our community. So let me be clear on that. I am the person that goes to the table, and I have these conversations with the police. And when the police are sitting there mocking the people of color who are there having real conversations about the safety and well-being of people of color in this community and the concerns that they have with the policing in this community, and we are being mocked at the table, the disrespect is one thing, but the total lack of empathy or sympathy to the voices of the citizens that we shared with them is why we're in the place we are today. If there is no accountability from our police department for their actions or inactions in the safety and well-being of people of color in this community, then they have no reason to be serving as a police officer. And I will say this as well. I do not raise my children to be disrespectful. My children are good people. They're good adults and good citizens. Having a light out during a pandemic when minor traffic violations were not an issue for a Black man to be pulled over when it was even stated that those were not even going to be issues from our police department. Yes, Daniel said, I do not raise my children to fear the police. My whole family are veterans. My son is still in the Navy. My husband was a Marine. My grandparents, my father, everyone, military. My grandfather was in the sheriff's department. I have respect for police and people in general, but respect is earned. And if you're going to be out there as a police officer and you're going to be treating people inversely based on the color of their skin, based on their sexuality, any other reason than them committing a crime, then I'm going to have an issue with that. I would not have received my grandfather with his badge and gun if he treated people that way. And I thank God he did not. The problem lies within this community thinking that in any way it is all right that a person of color being treated indifferently than you, a white person in a car, thinking that they must have done something wrong or acted out. No. My son feared for his life being pulled over on a dark road in Gresham because a police officer pulled him over on a dark road in Gresham. And that is not something that we can go to bed at night knowing is happening. We, as parents of children of color, if our kids are not home, if we cannot account for them, even as young adults, even in their adulthood at times, we're thinking, did our kid make it home from work today? Did my 30-year-old son make it home today? That is something so many of you do not have to worry about or fear or even stay up at night. That is something that people of color have had to face every single night, every day of their children's lives. And until you can truly understand that, sympathize, empathize, or anything of the such, you have no idea what it means to hear from your child that they were pulled over by a police officer in a dark road in the middle of the night. You have no idea the fear. So please, as you all make your comments in the chat, understand that your walk has not been our walk. That your child's experience may not have been my child's experience, but it does not mean my child is any less a decent human being than yours.
Okay, let's move on. Pandemic Duck. Are you here? If not, Ashley, I think you were indicated. Are you here? Okay, then we're back to Quinn.
Hello again, everyone. I don't have much to respond to other people's comments. I have a few new things to bring up. I went to the National Night Out event held by the Splash Pad Park in downtown Gresham a few months ago. And the National Night Out, if you're not familiar, is meant to be like a annual event where police can interface with the community and kids can come get stickers and stuff. We talked about this before. Other people have, I think Rosa brought up, like we can't have a better police through just more outreach alone. Anyways, my point was that I went to this event. They were offering free root beer floats, and that's the main reason I went, honestly. But while I was there, I talked to a few of the cops. And I was shocked at how honestly twisted and malicious their worldview is. I tried to talk to some of the police about, ideas of creating broader public safety beyond policing, and they just smirked and mocked at me. They went on, as I talked with them, they went on to disparage homeless people, disparage addicts. There's so much hatred towards homeless people, blossoming all over the country right now, and it's particularly terrible in Gresham. And I've seen this play out directly. I have some friends who live in a van, and they've been harassed in Gresham over and over and over by the Gresham police. And my friends are extremely kind, never leave a trace, and they were moving their van literally every single night so that they, wouldn't intrude or be seen as some type of unwelcome presence. But despite all their efforts, despite their best efforts, despite them honestly being perfect neighbors, they have been run out and harassed by the Gresham police over and over and over, told to go back to Portland, told they're not welcome. It's to the point now where they come and visit me and they're terrified because their whole life is in their van, right? Like that's where they live, that's where all their stuff is. And they're afraid of it getting towed because they know that the Gresham police are out for them. They've heard the Gresham police tell business owners in the area, while my friends were inside their van, they overheard the police telling business owners that they've been tracking them on purpose. They've been chasing these people around for months, weeks, or whatever. When my friends, again, have harmed no one, they're beautiful, kind people. And I'm seeing this happen over and over. And going back to the National Night Out events, I heard these police officers talk about homeless people in the most dehumanizing ways. And I don't know, like, I hear a lot of people in Gresham talk about how we can't become Portland. Portland's this disaster zone. Portland's really as bad as it is because cities like Gresham aren't carrying their weight. You think we don't have people becoming homeless in Gresham? Of course we do. Between the mass poverty, COVID, the fires, there's a lot of people facing homelessness, a lot of people facing evictions. And those people may be choosing to go to Portland because they know they won't be harassed by the police in the same way that they will be in Gresham. I've heard the same thing from my homeless friends in Sandy, where it's even worse than Gresham, in Boring, where it's even worse than Gresham. Okay, going back to this National Night Out thing, I walked away from that event. I went to it, you know, for the root beer floats, but I also went there with an open mind. I wanted to talk to the police and see if I could connect with them on a human level. I walked away from that event feeling more distrustful and more unsafe of the police than I have in years. You know, I don't want people serving as police if they think that homeless people are vermin. Can we just agree to that, please? Can that just be like an agreed upon thing? Can that be like a litmus test for hiring cops? And can it be a litmus test for firing cops, please? I don't want those cops working in our city. I don't want those cops to have guns or authority, please. And then, okay, I'll close my comment, but real quick, I just want to say too that I have a lot of complaints about this process that's happening tonight and the process that happened for the last meeting. But I do see so much value, honestly, in us getting together despite all of our disagreements and just getting together and talking, because this really needs to be unpacked. And it's just abundantly clear that this is a huge point of tension and conflict in Gresham and nationally. And we need to process it. Like having a conversation about like how we can improve the police department is fine, but we need to have like a deeper, broader conversation that involves the larger community and particularly people of color, because those voices are not well represented so far in this process. That's all I got to say right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Quinn. And again, we're doing what we can to try to bring all voices to the table, and we're going to continue to work with the city to try to do that. And hopefully, anyway, we're going to continue to try to bring all the voices to the table that we can, and appreciate those that are here. I think Emily, Lindsay, I think you're next. You still here? Okay. Anyone else? I don't have anyone else on the list at this point. Anyone else want to comment? Dina.
Thank you. I know this might be a little bit odd because I am the city councilor and I am jumping in here. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for being here, only because there's some tough discussions, but it's great to see a lot of people voicing this and doing this carefully. one of the things that I did reach out in the chat with, and it's based on something that I had planned to do for a long time, was try to find a place where we can start coming together. There's so many issues related to crime that everybody's concerned about in our community. It's only growing. People are not sure what to do about it. We're not being active, but there's a lot of people fighting back and forth on whose fault it is, or hate one another based on whether you're for the police or against the police. And I'm not sure that that's where we need to be. I'm just starting a group called Best of Gresham on Facebook. I'm doing it right now. And it is based on things like Quinn's comments about there has to be a time when we start working together as a community to work on solutions together and work on ways that we can start improving our community and taking care of the things that we can do as a community when the police aren't there able to do it for us. And I think there's enough voices in this community. They're talking about the desire to start working together again as a community to address these problems instead of pointing fingers and disliking one another. I am just hoping so much that we can do that. Anyway, I'm just going to start a group called Best of Gresham tonight, and I would encourage anybody that wants to get on there and start solving some of the problems that we're facing in our community without it being vigilante, without it being political, and without it being nasty in any way, but people wanting to work together for positive. Like I called it a long time ago. We need the Who's from Whoville, like till Christmas. That can, when there's all the negative stuff going out there, we're going to go through and we're going to start working on pulling this community together. So I just wanted to let that be known. I do want to reach out, and I know this is part of the conversation, but it's something that I didn't want to just leave up in the air. And that was gentleman Robert Fensky had mentioned something, and since we're in this meeting for clarification, he had mentioned something where he had said, you know, shame on city council, and etc. For police. And I really would like a better understanding and clarification so we do know, because I do think this is one of the issues that we are facing. Is there's some divisiveness and there's some ideas that council may be driving some of the issues with police. I think the Gresham's Finest Facebook page tends to put some things up there that are confusing. So I would really like to hear and have the open discussion about what those things might be. So thank you everyone for putting up with me speaking tonight.
Thanks, Dina. I appreciate that. And I'm going to go back to Rosa.
Thank you. I just had a question if we have any new numbers on the police department. I know in 2022, I'm sorry, in 2020, during our meetings with the police department and GSU, we were told there was around 128 police officers in Gresham. And of that, only 20 of the officers were people of color. With us having one of the larger numbers of diversity in our city, in Oregon, I'm just wondering, has those numbers changed? Do we have more diversity in the police department? What positions are those officers serving, and how are they getting out into the public to where we feel like we have people that we can turn to, people that we can have a conversation with without feeling threatened? Or how do we have those connections through the police department? Because it can't be done with just a badge and a sticker kind of thing. It can't be just a sticker anymore. We have to really look at how we're going to increase the communication to better the relationships. And I truly believe that as a community, we need to heal. And I would hope that those numbers are increasing for our officers of color. Is there anywhere we can get those numbers currently?
Well, Rosa, I appreciate you asking that question. I will tell you that the racial makeup of the police department is a specific metric that we are collecting and that we will report on in the report as part of the project. That will include identifying where people are in terms of in supervisory positions, anything of those along those lines. We are also working with the police department to give them recommendations on recruiting and hiring strategies to intentionally recruit for diversity and to staff a police department that fully represents the community of Gresham. So there are not hard numbers right now. My suspicion is that based on what we've heard and seen so far, the numbers have probably not changed measurably. But again, that is a piece that we will be looking at as a part of the process, and it will be included in the final report. So appreciate that question. Bob, I think you were next.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly respond to Dina. She reached out in the chat, which I know. I apologize for any misunderstood what I was saying. Dina and some other people made comments as well. I did say early on that I do feel for people that feel marginalized or other positions other than myself. And so maybe I didn't make it clear enough that I do have, I do care about everybody. Maybe that knows me knows it's not, I don't make personal attacks, but I will state my opinion. And hopefully we can get together. Dina, I would have no problem with you personally and having a discussion. We all, I think this is a great forum. And even though, each of us has our own strong opinions and they can come off a little heated. And again, I apologize for the way I may have come off. As far as specifically about city council members is what Dina was referring to. I am frustrated. I said that out of my frustration to know that there are people that are on city council or other places in the Gresham city government that do not fully support our police department. And I made it specific. Nobody's perfect. Yes, we do need help. We need, and it sounds like the police may need to work on. Maybe some of them need to address houseless or people of color differently. I don't know that. I hope we work on that. But to have council members or other people high up in city government that do not fully support the police, I do have a problem with that. I think public safety is the #1 job of government, whether it be local or national, and it hurts me, and that's why I said shame on you or whatever. That my feeling is that should be our #1 focus always, and not even necessarily diversity within the department. I want to see the most qualified people in the positions that they're hired for. And that could be from any color, sexual orientation, BIPOC, whatever you want to say. I want the most qualified people in every position of our government looking out for everybody of every one of those groups. So Dina, I'm more than welcome to reach out to me through Facebook, or I'll be more than happy to meet with you anytime you'd like. And I'll reach out to you.
Thanks, Bob. And I want to just make a comment about this generally. There have been people in different meetings talking about the level of support or lack of support from council. And I will tell you that, again, those are perceptions that people are repeating, which are not necessarily reflective of our experiences so far in talking with folks in city government who have really expressed completely the contrary to that, those statements. So, I think, and as I've said already within this forum, we all have a lot of, there are many different opinions about all these different things. And again, it's those opinions that make these conversations more difficult. And they make it hard for people sometimes to hear opinions that are contrary to their own without kind of letting those things slide. There's a natural tendency for us to want to correct all those things. So I just want to make sure that we keep in mind the purpose of this is to have a conversation about going forward and to talk about how we as how the Gresham Police Department can better serve the community. And again, I just reiterate, I appreciate all the comments that have been provided so far. I have right now on my list Karen, then Lori, then Josiah, I believe. So I'm going to go to Karen next.
Hi there. So in the question that Rosa kind of brought up, and Bob hit on this too, and I agree with you, Bob, in your study, are you going to be tracking how many people have applied that are people of color for the police? Because I want to make sure that we don't have the perception that we're not hiring people of color, but that, you know, if they're not applying. So do you understand what I'm
I understand the question, Karen. That's not a demographic that's collected typically, and so not something that we would report on. But again, without getting too deep into the details, we've already looked at a number of pieces and parts from the recruiting and hiring processes that that we want to work with the police department on to make improvements in those areas. So anyway, that's the answer to your question.
Okay, great. Because I am going to kind of second what Bob said too, that to me, while I do believe that diversity is important because we have a diverse community, we have to have qualified candidates, and the qualifications have to come first. I mean, that's got to be the most important thing, that we're getting properly qualified people. And again, I agree on the fact that we need to start fresh, like I said before, and we need to look at how to improve. And I think community engagement with the police officers is going to be huge. And again, not giving stickers or whatever, but for people getting to know them a little bit as people, a person, and how they care for the community. I feel really bad that it's ever been anything but that, because that's what I've seen from the police, is that care and helping with people. But I do believe that there's probably burnout sometimes, and it would be hard to deal with the same 5% of the people all the time that it sounds like happens with medical, with police, and with calls and different things going on, like when Officer Walker talked about arresting someone and 4 hours later having to arrest them again. So, you know, I can't even imagine what they do for a living, the police officers. So I just hope that we can all start fresh, look forward, and everybody just change their thought process, I guess, and say, let's start with a clean slate and move forward for improvement. So and I think community engagement with the police is going to be huge for that.
Right, Lori? Lori was here.
Yeah, I'm here. This is Lori Palmer.
Hey, Lori.
Hey, how are you doing? So, well, let me formally introduce myself. I'm Lori Palmer, and I am the founder of Go Get Your Child Community Violence Prevention Coalition. 59 years old. I didn't live in this community forever. I had a situation where I had a fancy car with the rims on it. I was pulled over. The police was going the opposite direction, and they turned around and pulled me over. So, you know, I asked him, I said, what did you pull me over for? He said, well, your tires, because I had 22s, were over the line. I said, are you serious? You got to be joking. You know, so he went ahead and ran me. So what happened with that, and I'm going to go ahead and copy the link and put it in the chat, the whole thing. So it was an investigation with Gresham police done on me with a reporter. And what she found was so disturbing. So it was a lady that police officer, black police officer that was working for Gresham police. She was racially picked on and asked to leave. She left because they was just treating her like dirt. And so with that investigation, they hired diversity. That's when they first started hiring diversity. So then I didn't even know there was some black cops on the police force. I had a situation where somebody tried to tase me, and I had to, protect myself. I called the police. Now I'm black. I don't call the police. You understand? I don't call them because I'm from the hood. We just don't call them. And so, I'm doing the right thing because I'm a professional. They pulled up so crazy. And I just want to focus on the African Americans, right? So I was like, oh, I'm so glad to see diversity while I was talking to them, right? And they was just standing there taking directions from the white cops, and they was acting like the white cops too. So what I'm saying is, when we do hire African Americans and different cultures, they need to be allowed to be themselves. Because what happens is the police officers, they like rookies to them, right? And they happy to get a job, so they just acting in a kind of way. I felt violated. Listen, I ain't never felt like a victim, like I felt like I was raped. Like I went into depression for like 2 weeks on this because I was like tripping. Like I called the police, I did everything right. And they did me like that. Then I was talking to my brothers and they treated me like that. They wouldn't even talk. They was like, he said, you can't move. I said, man, are you serious right now? And it's crazy. So when the police come, they go into racially systematic structure, and they gotta act, and they gotta walk and talk like them, the white people. And if they don't, then they're ostracized and talked about. And so that's not good. And so I want you to look into that as well. And I'll put that link in there right now so y'all can check it out. Because the reporter, she stayed on it for a whole year. And I had one other incident where I was doing a citizen arrest on a family member because I seen her smoking crack and she almost hit somebody. So I blocked her in over at the plant pantry, and police comes. Somebody in the store called the police because she was kind of fighting me. I was trying to, come on now, you got to get out the car because you high. You can't be doing this. And so when the police come, he yell at me, told me, get over there. I'm like, hold up for a minute, sir. I'm just doing a citizen arrest. I don't care what you're doing. Get over there. I said, man, what is your badge number? He had it covered up. He said, I'm not giving you my badge number. I said, you got to be joking. And he would not give me the badge number. And then he arrested her. But I said, you don't have to arrest her. I'm going to take her to her family. And he was like, no, she's going to jail. And I was like, wow. So that kind of stuff like that. That's why we don't mess with the police. Period. I'll put that link in there right now.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Josiah? I hope I'm saying that right.
Hi, my name is Jasia Mosley. Oh no, it's fine. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for holding this forum and moderating the best that you can. I just wanted to say that there seems to be a lot of misinformation and lack of education on the experiences of BIPOC folks from Gresham members, which is a majority white area. And I think that we need to have forums also available where BIPOC folks are leading that discussion and able to speak out on what their experiences are. Because I've been pulled over in Gresham 8 times. I have had a car for about a year and a half. Never got a ticket, nothing. I was followed home more than 4 or 5 times. Every time I'm pulled over, it's, where are you going? What are you doing? Your music is too loud, when I'm not playing music at all because I don't have a working radio. These things are harassment. This is not okay. And many of the white members of the community don't have to experience this because you have privilege as a white person. I'm not saying you have privilege in your lived experience. I'm not saying that you grew up rich or whatever. I'm saying you have the privilege of being white in America and in your community. So I think it's very important that you reach out to BIPOC folks to hear from them and start listening to the stories of those around you before you're speaking out against those people. You don't know what BIPOC folks have to go through every day. You don't know how we have to wake up every morning and, like Rosa said, hope that we can get home from work every day. Hope that our siblings get home from school without being harassed for being BIPOC. So I think it's really important that we also open up forums for BIPOC voices to be centered so that white folks can I don't appreciate the facial reactions, by the way. I would like to be respected as a community member. Thank you. I think it's very important that we have these forums and have these conversations, but also have forums and conversations that center the voices of our most vulnerable communities. So thank you.
Thank you, James. I appreciate that. And again, there are going to be additional opportunities for open forums and meetings, and certainly we do hope that you will check the social pinpoint site and plug into those meetings as you're able. Sue, I believe you were next.
I was just going to go back to a comment that was made earlier that possibly you could give the stats on. It was regarding, I think someone said we had 120 police officers, but I think that number is down since then. So could you clarify that just for the members here? Thank you.
I appreciate that. Actually, Sue, I do not know that specific number. The staffing levels within the police department have been in flux, and so I don't really know the answer. And I don't know the answer off the top of my head. And again, that's a number that we are asking for from the city as a part of our staffing evaluation, and we will look at what the staffing needs and demands are for the police department to understand how the number of staff correlate to workload demands for the police department. But I don't have that number.
I don't know if perhaps Dina does. I just wanted the people that are on here to know that the number has dropped fairly significantly, just so they can know the police force is understaffed right now.
Yes, so that is a good point. There have been a number of folks that that have left the force, and again, that's part of the reason why we're seeing some of the staffing crunches and even folks being reallocated from specialty units back to patrols. So, and I see there's somebody put in here. I can't speak to whether I know this to be true, but it says there's currently 110, budget authorized 127. I think that's fairly close. I'm not even sure if that number is completely accurate, but I think that's fairly close. Julie.
Hi. I wanted to kind of go back to when Cahoots was mentioned in the chat, and I think Andy Miller referenced it. I am very involved in mental health and have dealt with the Gresham Police and the Portland Police with mental health concerns for my one of my adult sons. And so I just wanted to bring that back into the discussion, and I think that Gresham would greatly benefit from a team of mental health responders who would help the houseless and the mentally ill and provide solutions and assistance instead of having our Gresham police officers show up in uniform, and it just tends to, at least in my experience, in my lived experience, it's not really what they've been trained to do, and then it kind of escalates the situation because the person experiencing the mental health crisis is probably fearful of the police. And so I would love to see the Gresham community support that kind of a program and an approach. And I also wanted to say that it's really sad me to hear people's lived experiences, and for them not to be validated by some of the people in the and that we just really have to look outside our little box and affirm others' experiences, and I'm a white person and I can't, you know, I have a different experience, and I believe that. And So I just wanted to let you know that I support all of those that have said that they have had experiences that made them feel marginalized or not respected. Thank you.
Julie. Unless I missed someone, I think we have worked through everybody that asked to speak. Have I missed anyone? We have a few minutes left before we wrap up.
Hello, yes, I asked to speak. My name is Jermaine Flincher. I put it in the chat.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I've been here on this call for a while, and I guess my question is, where's the investment? Because when I'm trying, because I think it's interesting. I look at it sometimes to say the investment, because if you de-invest, you're going to get crime. We totally see this, and I'm looking at where's the investment in the community. So sometimes it's almost like police against parks, right? We're making it a budget issue, right? If you put money with police, we don't get parks. So if you don't have the proper things that say for the youth to do, what are you expecting them to do in the community, right? Like I look at this and I kind of, not know on this call because this is not necessarily saying this is for what happened, but Gresham almost seen that what was going to take place years before this, and it still wasn't no investment. And we still kind of fighting on what's the investment in this, right? Like, okay, there's money for more office, but what are we investing in? Like, there's a lot of that. I mean, we gotta. I'm trying to ask this question because what I'm seeing is a back and forth, and I'm seeing almost become a race thing. And then it's like, but we're all here for public safety because I think at the end of the day, how do we invest in our community? Because if you invest in me, I'm gonna bring out a proper product, right? Like this is an investment to change this mindset, right? And then we're like, some people on this call are talking about how they look at public safety and public safety become about a Cadillac converter. Some people on this call talking about a public safety is my kids dying. So how do this community invest, right, to kind of take these things out? And I'm still haven't heard necessary, like, what is the city going to do in an investment? And I think I will be talking to you too, Chief, a little. We got another call, but anyway, I think how to invest in this, right? Like how to invest to change this, because this conversation almost can have you getting upset because you start to see certain people saying certain things, but I don't see the investment in our youth. We don't have basketball courts in Gresham. Who in the world has a metropolitan city without basketball courts? Them type things, like what is our youth going to do? I mean, whoever voted or said that we're not going to invest into these type of things, and now you got this big problem on your hand, and now everybody's talking about, well, and these situations, and this is out of control because sometimes that investment is what we're missing here, right? We can't have a conversation like it was kind of interesting what Andy said. Of course, these people are going to look like animals. And of course, these people are going to think they're the zookeeper of these animals because there's no investment here for those. What's the common ground? If I was living in a community where I own something, you better bet I'm going to be invested into that community. I'm going to be invested into that school. I'm going to be invested into all these different things. But if I don't own it, why am I invested in it? Why? What does that make sense of? So we're playing and we're nibbling around there, and then we're not necessarily addressing all our needs that we really need to have a healthy, thriving community. Because when it comes, it's always a budget issue, right? Like I say, we turn public safety against park and police. What? I don't think anybody on this white call will say that we are against the police. But sometimes I think people are not honest about how certain people get served by the police, right? Because some people live the experience. We all know some people live the experience is totally different. That's what history has says. The investment, you get this. Investment, you get this. You invest in a youth, you probably gonna get the most proper youth. Just like we invest in our kids, don't they? For the most part, they turn out to be right. You just invest in this community. Well, this is what you see here. And now everybody's what's going on here, but I still think this is a very deeper and deeper and deeper conversation where it's the investment. I can't see the investment in this, right? Like historic it says, but where is the investment? It's my mind boggling. It's like, how are we gonna invest? What are we doing? Like we know how, I mean, if you want better cops, qualified cops, there, all that kind of stuff. It's almost, where's this public safety is working at in the United States? It's my question. Where example do we have where this public safety is working at in the United States? Right? Like, I mean, where is we having where police and community are having this wonderful thing? Where is that working at? I mean, it seems to have maybe to certain people in certain communities, but look at that community. They're investing into that community. That's a thriving community. When it's when you have an investment in a thriving community, you see it. We can start to name some things that we see where we think it works at. But when it comes to this, it seems like everybody's forgetting there's no investment. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm gonna leave it there. And yeah, we'll have more conversation to come. Thank you, guys.
So I appreciate that, and I do want to mention, I know a couple of you put in the chat that there were a couple of people waiting to get in. First of all, we stopped letting people back in a little while ago because we were getting people intentionally coming in and spamming the meeting. Also, there were just recently a couple of people asked about letting some folks in, and frankly, we're winding down, and we're at the end of our meeting time. So I appreciate the fact that they want to make comments. I would ask you to direct them back to the social pinpoint site and or to additional meetings that we have going forward. I want to say again that first of all, I appreciate everybody being here, making an investment in their time, in their community to be a part of this conversation. The reality is, as I've said before, and I think others have mentioned, there's a lot of different opinions. And it's the conversations that are important to help everyone move forward. I realize that there are a lot of folks here are talking about some very broad social issues, and those are important conversations. And quite frankly, it's evident those conversations need to continue more broadly throughout the community and talk about other things like Jermaine was mentioning. Really, again, the focus of our investment here is looking specifically at public safety and the police department. And so while I recognize and appreciate how the larger social issues and larger kind of national climate relates to the project, some of those things are kind of beyond the scope. That doesn't mean they're not important conversations. And again, all of the conversations that we've heard tonight have been important. And I know that there's been a little bit of back and forth in the chat, and I realize that not all of that has been favorable to everyone who's been here. But keep in mind, these are important conversations, and we need to be able to have them in order to go forward. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to very much express our appreciation for that and invite you to continue to be a part of the process going forward. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the video running for just a second, just in case, but it doesn't look like they're going to have anything else going on. Probably for the best that I had my microphone muted through this whole thing. Those who had to see my very visible freak out at one of the speakers, I definitely apologize for that. That is... it was something that struck a deeper nerve with me than I expected it would be, and like I said, I apologize for that. That being said, it looks like we are winding down for the night. I appreciate the people that were here to see this. I'm going to be putting out more videos, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, going over some of the other stories that we've been following that with everything going on haven't had the time and energy to properly talk about like we've been wanting to. So keep an eye out for that. They do have plans, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the next event they have currently listed as January 20th at 6 p.m. Location to be determined. It sounds like they are going to work on setting up a second or a broader venue. At the December 13th meeting, they had the issue where they tried to have a secondary venue set up and people were late showing up, so they didn't realize that it was going to have as much interest as it did. They closed down the second venue, and then sorry, brain's a little scrambled here. They closed down the second venue, and then all of a sudden everyone showed up and they didn't have time to set it back up again. Hopefully they have addressed that in this coming session. I am going to try to see if I can work with Michelle and her staff to better coordinate being able to document. Oh, there we go. We lost the meeting ended here. Okay. It already there we go. This is just from the social or my social pinpoint site, which is down in the video description on YouTube. Anyway, I am going to try to reach out to them and work on better setup for audio recording and such for the next meeting. I didn't realize at the time, but video from the meeting came out pretty well, but audio was, I just did not have the proper equipment for it. And I'm going to try to see what I can do to further improve that for next time. That said, again, definitely thank you for everybody that tuned in and those who are going to get to see this later. If you want to support our work, definitely share out the information about our live streams and our Twitter and such. Links are in the Linktree link down in the video description. If you're able to and you want to, you can definitely support us directly through Patreon, sponsors. We also have a lot of options for one-time donations. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight, get a little bit of rest, and get back into it tomorrow. Be safe, get vaccinated, have a good night.